Welcome back to Capes and Tights, a pop culture and comic book podcast. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg, and that's your other host, Adam Morissette. We're back for another episode. Oh, it's fun talking to you about fake things. I actually rewatched it because Adam and I were supposed to do this last week. Nice weather last Monday. Don't blame him. Actually, my parents were in town too, so it actually worked out that we didn't record last Monday because I actually got to visit with my parents. And Adam went for a hike and stuff and did some other things or whatever, but we were able to delay it 1 week, which is fine. But I actually got to rewatch the entire series of Peacemaker again because Taylor wanted to watch it. So I got that in, which is pretty cool. But before we get started on Peacemaker, just a quick couple words to not, damping the mood at all. But we just wanted to say, as from Capes and Tights, that we are sad to see what's going on over in Ukraine right now, and that our thoughts are with all those who have been killed or missing. And our thoughts are with the people who will be killed or go missing in the next near future, because doesn't seem like it's ending anytime soon. It's hard to get words together to try to say how you feel and what you mean, but it's an atrocity right now, what's happening, and it's not unnecessary. And I feel like it's just a small thing. And we're going to have fun. We're going to laugh. We're going to talk about a funny TV show. But to start it off, I thought it's hard. And I don't know if Adam, if you had anything else to say on top of that, but I think it's just a sad moment right now.
No, I mean, I'd say something we were saying right before we went on, and it feels even like weird to do a podcast right now because, I mean, it just feels like, to be brutally honest, at times, like, small and insignificant when there's but at the same time, like we were saying before, it's like, it's okay to still have fun though, or like we're all going to lose our minds. And like some of us that even remember a little bit of it before, like, I mean, lives went on before when we had a cold war like this or a hot war. And so it is okay to still like enjoy yourself and have fun. Like, don't stress yourself out because you're reading comic books while this is going on. It's okay. So
and that's the thing. It's the you think it's weird to do something like this, but in the same sense, with people like Adam and I who were trained to Twitter and trained to the internet, or things that like we want to know the most about what's going on in these situations. So whether it be a new trailer for a TV show or a movie or a video game, whether it be something to do with the United States political landscape, or whether it be a war in another country. And Adam and I try to be on the pulse, and we like to look at these things. And so something like this, after we get past this little tiny intro part, we're going to get our minds off of that stuff for a little bit and talk about other things so that our minds aren't always just on these sad moments out there. But that does not mean we don't feel for it and we don't think about it and we don't care about it. It's just one of those things that happens, and it's unnecessary and it's sad, but we're going to move on. And so again, just start with that. We're with the people of Ukraine, and hope them the best, wish them the best. And if I could do anything. Oh, one thing I will say is that Ryan Reynolds and his wife, that's the only thing I did see that recently that's pop culture related, did put out there that they're going to match up to $1 million worth of donations to help the Ukraine people. So you can check Ryan Reynolds' Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, to see that information. I wasn't going to use this just to promote that because it just came to mind, but it didn't. Now connects the two worlds of pop culture, comic books, and nerdism, and what's going on in the world today. So you can check that out too. I don't know if you saw that, but him and his wife, the most perfect couple in the world, I think, are donating upwards to $1 million to help with the people trying to escape. Maybe I don't remember. You check it out. It seems like a good cause. So I would look into that. It's one of those things when you're trying to find something to do, trying to go to the right places is always the good thing. So do your research on it too before. Don't just listen to me. But sometimes donating money to certain places. Back when was it the Haiti?
Yes.
When Haiti had their earthquakes, and there was all these like weird places to donate money, and like half the money didn't even get to them. So do your research before you donate any money to anywhere. But we'll always take donations of money though. If you, we got to pay for our coffee and stuff, man.
Exactly.
Right. But speaking of, God, what was I say? I'm getting a sample of that new non-alcoholic beer from Portland. Cassie's getting some to Orna Brewing Company, so I'll have to see if I can get some to you because I want to try that Kitna.
Ooh, I haven't had that one.
It's from the people who started Austin Street Brewing Company in Portland. They started a non-alcoholic one.
Oh, I did have one the other day.
Yeah.
Now that you said it, I read their story. Yeah, it's outstanding.
Good.
It's really good.
Cassie was checking it out for the Orna Brewing Company tasting room that I work with, and I wanted to get Adam a non-alcoholic beer because Adam's a non-alcoholic beer fan. And so, well, let's get into Peacemaker. I mean, so absolutely. First of all, Adam, we're talking DC. Like this is like
We
it's
are
unusual ground for us to go to, because we've been usually, just because of my fandom and your fandom and a lot of Star Wars and Marvel, has been a lot of our talks over the past 6 months that we've been doing this, 8 months we've been doing this. And then on top of that, we will be talking hopefully the Dark Knight trilogy at some point in the next couple of months. So that's another DC thing. But it's very weird for us to watch something DC. It's also very weird for me to watch a DC TV show. There's something about DC TV shows that are very teeny bopper or young adult. I should say teeny bopper is a old slang, but young adult, like with the Smallville and Flash and Green Arrow and all that, or Arrow and all that stuff. Those are all very like drama, like not drama as in like Taylor and I watching the Hannibal Lecter series over again, not like drama like that,
like soap opera drama.
Yes, like high school drama. Like, oh my gosh, someone stole my girlfriend. Kind of
after school, like teenage soap opera. That's
and not to say that they're bad. They're just not what I want to watch right now. I'm rewatching a little bit on the side of the Marvel's Daredevil season 1 from Netflix, and it's not the same. Like, you know what I mean? That's very dark and gritty. Right. Whereas like Smallville was like, oh my gosh, I like that person and I like that person. And so I'm glad to see this. It was different for sure. I am very happy with what went on.
It was weird for sure.
But let's talk a little bit about it. So it's an HBO Max series.
Yep.
That was a first 3 episodes got released on January 13th. And then they went weekly afterwards, which I'm a big fan of now. Adam and I have talked about that a little bit. Like the whole week to week thing is good, even though both of us basically pretty much binged it. But for the most part, most people like that week to week thing.
Yep.
It was created by James Gunn, one of my all-time favorites. He also wrote and executive produced the show, as well as directed 5 of the episodes. And I think the show has been renewed for a second season already, and he is scheduled to direct, produce, and write all of next season, which is pretty cool. It stars John Cena as Peacemaker, Danielle Brooks as Leota Adebayo, Freddie Stroma as Vigilante. I can never say his name. He was also in a Chuck Woody, whatever. He's Clemson Mern.
Yep.
I can't say his name, and I'm sorry, but we're not paid to do that. So Jennifer Holland as Amelia Harcourt, Steve Agee as John Economos, Robert Patrick as White Dragon or Chris Smith, John Cena's character's dad. Eagly was voiced by D. Bradley Baker, who also voiced the gorilla in there. I hate to say the word voice, because how can you voice animals?
Right.
Rizwan Manji as Jamil, who was the janitor, which is awesome. And then we'll get into it. Spoiler alert to anybody who wants to not watch the show. There was a cameo at the end of the last episode by Jason Momoa as Aquaman and Ezra Miller as the Flash, which was unbelievable. We'll get into that. So that's Peacemaker, the TV show information. I wanted to quickly just talk, because Peacemaker's a weird character, and I didn't know much about him until I did some information. Yep. Originally owned by Charlton Comics, was later acquired by DC Comics. His first appearance was in Fightin' 5, number 40 in 1966. It was created by Joe Gill and Pat Boyette. The first version appeared in the Suicide Squad soft reboot / sequel that James Gunn also wrote and directed for the DCEU, which came out last summer. Was shot in the movie. Oh, I was like looking at my notes here. I'm like, this is crazy. Quick fun thing about the connection between the two, Suicide Squad and this. He was shot in the movie at the end, right? And he opens this season up with him in the hospital and the janitor conversation and all that stuff. Someone asked him on Twitter or something, because James Gunn's pretty popular on Twitter, and how they got the bloodstains to look the same. Like, how much work was it to get to look at the character? Right. He goes, I think we just used the suit from the movie. I was like, well, that does make sense.
That would make sense. Yeah.
I mean, they just made the movie, so it's not like, but yeah, it was kind of funny. I was like, yeah, I guess that's pretty smart of them. Save some money and just use the suit from the end of the movie for the beginning of the new movie. But yeah, so I thought it was great. I thought it was one of those ones that I was like, Adam, we should do a review of this. We should talk about this. Yep. But then I hadn't watched it yet, and I was like, I really got to get myself to watch it. And I was working at my desk here, and I have a TV right above it. I was like, I'll throw it on. I had to stop doing that because I had to start watching the show, because it was so funny. It was funny. The story was great. It was the casting was amazing. I told Taylor it was like if you took Guardians of the Galaxy and Deadpool and kind of merged them together and had directed by James Gunn and written by James Gunn. I think that's the thing that was amazing about it. It was the fact that it was like comedy of Guardians of the Galaxy mixed with comedy of Deadpool, but also the vulgar part of Deadpool. I thought it was great.
Yep.
End of podcast. See you guys later.
That's the end. I mean, man, I always have to like preface all of our DC stuff by saying like I like really, because again, I love DC comics. I just have a huge problem with everything I see with their film, and so every time I go in and I'm like, clean slate, man, this time. And this one was weird. Like there's parts of it I think were like the casting, like you said, was like I thought was perfect. The dialogue is funny. And I loved its grittiness, and I felt like it very much though, like it was so weird and hyper violent and like hyper sexualized and hyper macho that a lot of the stuff that it was trying to make a really good commentary about for what would be a lot of Americans we forget, like middle America and kind of their values. And for me, the problem was in the end, I just came out going like, I think it really just meant that killing people is the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's funny, except the joke didn't come across real great to me at the end.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. What's funny was when you see him go back, he leaves prison or leaves the hospital, and the first episode goes back to his trailer. And you see his trailer, all I could laugh about was the fact that John Cena, and this is not, I don't want to alienate anybody who's wrestling fans and things like that, but wrestling, he's a wrestling person who became an actor. He's probably only second to freaking The Rock for successful and actually good at acting that became from wrestling. But it made me believe that that's the trailer he grew up in. Like, legitimately, John Cena grew up in. Like, all I could picture is John Cena living in a trailer park that's painted like the American flag, and that's where he actually grew up in. So it was like going home, and so that part was funny. But yes, the middle America, the less wealthy, the poor America, and then, but he does make the joke. So it does. I guess what you're saying is that yes, killing people is the answer, but he does make the joke that he needs to have peace as much as
absolutely
as many people as he needs to kill.
Yep.
But you're right, though. It seemed like all they needed to do was just kill.
And let me back up though and clarify, because like I think the parts of it that I thought were brilliant, I thought John Cena as Peacemaker was like on multiple levels was important because he is a huge wrestler that does pull in an audience that might not be the audience you see in other types of film. And I wasn't, this is what I wanted to clarify, trying to be critical in that there are so many Americans who live a life that is much more like patriotic and cut and dry in ways that it wouldn't be for me, but it is an overwhelming number of people. So my point, like, it's important that there are films that reflect it. And I think it was reflecting it. And it was even trying to make really important points about intergenerational racism and misogyny and kind of hypersexualized porn culture and all of this stuff, which I think is brilliant. Except in the end, I really still felt like all of that stuff's bad, but I should go murder people like indiscriminately. So that's more what I was trying to criticize.
So I understand. Like, so there was no growth really for Peacemaker from the beginning to the end of the show. There was no like, okay, I started by doing this. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. He did. And there is that connection where you mentioned that there's this idea that if my parents are bad, that I'm bad. And the same thing, like his dad is super racist, sexist, like literally like the most horrible human being you can even think of.
Yeah.
That the only real thing, I mean, John Cena's character as Peacemaker is just it's stupid. Like he has common sense issues, but the only thing that he really has is that he kills people. Everything else, I think he's sexist, but he's not aware that he's sexist. If that makes any sense.
And I qualify that saying, I mean, that might be something that they continue working on in season 2, and like I said, because he does grow as a character. As far, I mean, I think the part about racism was like kind of painfully spot on about how that works, and that he does still love him, and he did used to maybe think more like that, but now he doesn't. And that's an important message for people to like see that it's okay to change. I just think we don't always need to package that message with, but guns and killing people are like, rock on, man. Do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy because it's great when I was watching the show too, to see that the ability that James Gunn went that route, like the character that is placed as his dad's character as White Dragon is what DC has used over the years as white trash, racist, sexist, horrible human beings. So it's always been that's the figurehead that it goes to. And it was funny to me, like they had to play on the KKK with the hoods that had the horns on and all that stuff. But like, I'm surprised that they even went there. Like, to me nowadays, with quote unquote cancel culture and all this stuff, I mean, the character had to play, Robert Patrick had to play a racist and had to say racist things on the screen. And it's one of those things that, like, the comparison to stand-up comedians who are making jokes about certain things like that, it's like it's part of their act. Well, this is the same thing. It's part of that same thing, but similar thing, where it's part of his act. So it's crazy that Robert Patrick had to say super racist, super sexist things, and know that Robert Patrick probably is not super racist or super sexist. And that's just that he actually, the TV show actually went there, and he didn't get a lot of pushback that I've seen. There hasn't been this crazy amount of pushback that they actually portrayed those characters.
I mean, honestly, like, that would be one of my praises of the show, is that it like, if you're gonna go there, you either go there or you don't go there, and because the in between isn't the reality. So if you're gonna do white nationalists and racist, you got to be what's going to be very, very, very offensive to people. So I appreciate that was done, because I think that gets sanitized way too often in a lot of modern films. So that was cool, I thought, as far as like being willing to take a risk.
Well, it's the same thought that I have when I watch something that's put on streaming and deserves to be put on streaming services. Like or movies like Deadpool that are rated R. Like, to do Deadpool right, the Deadpool that we remember from recent comic books, you have to make it R-rated. You have to be able to make him say the F word and do all that stuff. You have to be able to do that. So, like, there is this point where you have to be able to do this. The show would not have been able to be on CW. Would not have been able to do what they were able to do with it on CW. And so, because of it being on HBO Max and them be able to just go no holds bar and were able to do whatever they wanted, made some jokes really funny, made some serious things really like eye-opening, and made the show, I think, as a whole, a success for James Gunn and what he's doing over at DC. When John Cena asked James Gunn about the role and stuff like that, like, so, and also this Chris Smith Peacemaker character seems a little bit different than it was in Suicide Squad. I don't think he was. It's like they took the Suicide Squad one and pushed it to 11, and so, which is funny. But he's like, how do I play the character Peacemaker? John Cena asked James Gunn, and James Gunn said, please do not read any comics on the character out there, and just act like a broy douchey Captain America. And I was like, that is absolutely perfect. That is absolutely perfect what he is. He's a broy douchey murdering Captain America, and wants the best for everything, but doesn't understand sometimes. Again, I don't think the common sense thing is there. Like, there's that synapse that's not firing in his brain to make common sense of things. And it's just like, bang. Like, when they found out they were, when we walked into that facility and they found out that with their X-ray vision that they were butterflies, and they just shot him right away. It was not like, there was no question about it. It was just bam, shoot, done, kill. I don't know. That's a little different because they're not human beings, but those people are already dead. But yeah.
Sure.
So those things. But then you add in the fun part of it, and you add in the break from normal DC. So that's what I think is. So to break off a little bit of the sexist, racist part for a second, and bubble it up a little bit. The break from DC, though, because DC's always been, we've talked about this, Batman, Superman, Green Arrow, The Flash, like Justice League, Wonder Woman. That's what they've always focused on for years on movies, TV, all that stuff. For James Gunn to do another thing, to take a character like the Suicide Squad, and take a character out of the Suicide Squad that really no one gave two craps about, and make it into a successful TV show that gets renewed for a second season, like he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, whereas no one cared. Guardians of the Galaxy comic books were in the dollar bin at your comic book store because no one cared about them. Very little people cared about them. And they were able to make a movie out of something that no one cared about. I didn't watch Peacemaker. Honestly, I don't think I would have watched Peacemaker if it wasn't for James Gunn, just because I know how good he did the Suicide Squad, and know how good he did Guardians of the Galaxy. But he made a character that gave two craps about, a character that I actually care about now. And that's what's cool about this whole thing, is that it's very cool that they took basically an unknown entity that really has no connection to anybody. No one really cares. And to make it into something that people care about, which is really cool. I think a DC, if they go that route for the future, could be successful, especially if they get people like James Gunn, or bring over Taika Waititi, or, those kind of people to write the movies and direct those movies. I think they could go far. It's the fact that they're going to make a sequel to the Batman movie that's already hasn't been out there. And I don't know. This is great.
No, it is. And like I said, I think that is the part that's important about it, is, we don't think that often that in Marvel, like, all of your characters usually are in cities.
Yes.
Like usually are like, I mean, the very, very urban Manhattan, Chicago kind of life. And so it's not only a great like use of a minor character, but like I said, it's interesting to see characters that are in rural settings and not in major metropolitan areas. And I had DC seems to be doing that a little bit more. And I think that's great. I think we should have that different kind of narratives. So that part of it I think is really cool.
And I love eight episode seasons. I'm also a pretty big fan. I just wanted to throw that out there before I forgot because I didn't have it written down. I was realizing that the other day with like Daredevil and some of these other series that are like eight episodes, 40 minutes piece. That's like, to me, is perfect because you can do 22 episodes, but I feel like this is a long undertaking to do a long season like that. I feel like it was just draw out at that point. That's the other thing I will say. The biggest thing to me, literally the biggest thing about the show to me was the James Gunn's ability to make the music work with the show and not accompany the show, like intertwined, the point where it almost breaks the fourth wall the entire season. So to the point where like music's playing in the background, and you're just like, oh, cool, it's hype music to get them. And then come to find out they're actually listening to it in the car. And the fact that he wants to sing, he puts the record on in that apartment and picks up the sex toy and starts singing with the sex toy and like playing choir boys and all that stuff. And it just kicked off the idea that they wanted to play that song, but they intertwined it in the show. It's not just a soundtrack. It's like, if you pull the music out, the show falls flat. And that's what's amazing with James Gunn's being able to do. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy's two soundtracks for 1 and 2 are like superly popular. And I feel like the same thing with this. He created a playlist that I'll actually put in the link on our website, capesandtights.com, for this episode, the playlist on Spotify of all the songs in it. And I sent it to my dad, and my dad goes, now that's music.
That's awesome.
and the wigwam, the intro, the music that's played during the intro, is that song like was hit number 1 on some chart somewhere 15 years after the song came out. First time it's ever been this high and all that stuff. So good for them. Like, I'm sure they're sitting at home being like, hell yeah. They probably paid nothing for the song. I can't imagine that song was very sought after for a TV show. But some of the other songs in there are big songs. And to have that soundtrack for a TV show is, the budget was up there. And again, it was this weird thing I was telling Taylor. It's like, it's not a soundtrack. It's part of the movie that when they put the playlist together on Spotify, they're pulling the songs from the movie and putting it on a playlist. Like it's intertwined. 90% of the songs are intertwined, except for the randomness of the intro dance, like the absolute randomness.
Oh, of course, which is hilarious. I mean, the intro that alone makes the series worth seeing. I mean, I thought that was hilarious.
I loved it too. I'm watching it because obviously it's the beginning of every episode, and I'm watching it and I'm going, the janitor's in there. He's literally in the entire show twice, 2 different scenes. He's in the very first scene of the show, and he's in a scene in like episode 6 or 7 where he's at the school and his daughter needs a uncle that is a popular person to make them stand out in the movie. And that's the only time he's in the intro song. The friggin' neighbor that gets in yelling matches with Peacemaker at his dad's house is in the intro song. And I'm just laughing. I'm like, these people that don't mean anything. Like the Adebayo's wife is in it, and she's in the show like 6 times. It's like,
did you see in the intro that at one point, if you look in the back, I forget his name, the judo master, what's his name?
Judo master. Yeah,
keeps peeking around the corner.
Oh, really?
Like way in the back. And if you
then he finally comes out.
Yeah, he goes boom, like it boom. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I thought the cinematography and the sets on the show were really great too.
That's, and again, it's shot like a movie.
But like it's kind of like I said with the other part of this, it was amazing how much of it was shot in strip malls, like very kind of like I said, rural settings, mobile homes, and what we would remember as kind of these small homes from the 70s and 80s. And that part of it was really just brilliantly shot, because it's hard to, shoot in a strip mall and have it be exciting. But I thought that was really cool.
Like I said, the shot part of it, the length of the episodes were great. I think that the smart part of the 3 episodes being released, like, because I didn't watch it that way. I watched like the first 4 or 5 episodes, then I watched it week to week. But the first 3 episodes was released at the same time. And if you get to the end of the first episode, like on the rewatch that I did, is you realize that you need that. Like it wouldn't have been good if you just released that one episode and you didn't have any context for the next one, waiting a week. Right. They're in the parking lot. He just used the sonic boom to blow up the woman he just slept with. And that end of that show. But then because the beginning of the next episode was kind of slow too, where they were trying to get him out of the building. And so those things to me were like, okay, I'm glad they did it as like a 3-part thing. It's the same thing. I watched Bad Batch, the Star Wars thing, and episode one's like an hour and 10 minutes, and the rest of them are 20-minute episodes. And it was like they needed to give you like a here you go, and then the rest of it followed. This is the same thing. I felt like the first 3 episodes needed to be together, and then the rest of them were okay, episodic after that, which was great.
I mean, I think the 1 hour start, then 30 minutes after is great. Cause like you said, I mean, I don't care even if you split it up into multiple, like if you drop a 90-minute episode to start, like I get that 100%. You get to establish the world and the characters. And I love it though. I end up watching shows I would never watch because I just get hooked on the week to week thing.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as a non-DC fan, well, we're gonna trash on some DC things too. Was the fact that they made fun of DC movies in this show or DC characters? The multiple times they made fun of Superman, they made fun of Batman, they made fun of Aquaman, all these characters, and it was just like these things that he's making up. And at the very beginning of when he's in the hospital with the janitor, and he's like, Aquaman likes to sleep with fish. And he's like, how do you know that? And he goes, I refuse to believe that Pepe the Frog 89 is lying to me for no reason. At Pepe the Frog 89 is lying to me for no reason. Well, he also said that Superman likes butt stuff. Batman is a pussy, he said at one point when he was arguing with a neighbor because he won't kill anybody.
Green Arrow's a furry, right?
Yes. And then Aquaman likes to sleep with fish and all that stuff. But it was just funny because he was like, the Batman one was like, points out the exact thing all of us are thinking at the end of every Batman movie, which is if you would just kill them, there wouldn't be a need for, like, he puts them in prison, they break out, he has to get them again. It's the obvious thing that we always avoid as comic book fans is that we need this to make the comic books exist. But in the same sense, it's that point he points it out to the neighbor, and the neighbor was just like, I was just trying to have a conversation. And he gets all upset about Batman, and he's like, the whole idea whether he's a villain or a superhero, and he's like, I'm a superhero, and he's like, well, you kill people, so you're kind of a villain. But yeah, that made me laugh so hard because I'm like, I can't believe DC would be like, yeah, you're cool, go ahead and do that. Just crap all over these other characters.
And I'm glad you said that because that was one of the things I wanted to say, because we've talked about it many times, is I feel like at some point when your whole brand is being this like meta deconstruction of comics and what they are, but in the process you're really crapping on yourself too, is not a sustainable model. I just feel like the whole Watchmen thing, that was not meant to always now be what dominates DC Comics. So
I mean, if they were smart, and James Gunn probably didn't do it because he is smart, is making fun of Marvel in that DC thing, but James Gunn knows he has to go back and direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in the holiday special, which he knows that if he craps on Marvel in that, maybe when it's done and he has no movies set up in the future, he can play a little bit with it. But the truth of the matter is, I guess he's going back to, so he's doing season 2 of this, but he's going back to Marvel for Guardians 3 and the holiday special. And then he would like to come back and play with another character in the DC world. But I think James Gunn's typecasted himself in a sense. Like, he has to do these kind of movies. He can't do
of course
anything else now. So it's got to be something along these lines, because there's no way that he can do a Batman movie. I just don't see it happening unless they were completely weird with it. James Gunn wrote this whole thing during the pandemic. Which makes sense, but he like during lockdown, during the time where it was strict lockdown, he wrote the entire 8 episodes and pitched it. And that's one of the reasons why it went straight to series instead of piloting or anything, is because he sent it to HBO Max and to DC, and they're like, yeah, let's go with it. And they ran with it to have something come out at the beginning of the year. But so before I forget to, I'm trying to go down through my notes here from the movies. Sometimes I'm organized, sometimes I'm not, and that's something people will learn or have learned from us. We do jump back and forth a lot on things. But did you see the tweet out there that someone accused James Gunn of nepotism by hiring and casting Jennifer Holland as Harcourt? So Jennifer Holland is now, because we waited a week to do this episode, engaged to James Gunn. They got engaged over the weekend or over last week or last Monday or something like that. They got engaged. So his fiance, he hired his longtime girlfriend as Harcourt in the Suicide Squad, and then obviously in this. And someone's like, oh, that's nepotism. Like, she's the only pretty blonde woman in her 40s that could play the character. And I'm like, how he isn't Hollywood all about knowing people? Like, isn't that how people get jobs? Like, I was just reading, we were watching Hannibal over again, and Hannibal. So Jodie Foster was in Silence of the Lambs, right?
Yep.
She wasn't in Hannibal, which came out right afterwards. And come to find out, she just didn't want to do the role. And who was it? Now I can't remember.
Julianne Moore.
Yes, got the job, but there was a cast of people, like a list of people who wanted the job. And Anthony Hopkins is like, no, I've worked with Julianne Moore before, so I'd like to be Julianne Moore. Sure. She got the job. Is that now Anthony Hopkins' fault because she picked? Like, that's how I was like so fascinating by how people can go on and try to cancel, quote unquote, cancel people because of something that's so freaking stupid.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That one to me is just so bizarre because I feel like if somebody said to me, "Hey, he just hired his son to play this role," I would be like, "Okay." I mean,
awesome.
I mean,
it's good to know people,
and like nothing about that shocks me. Nothing about that shocks me.
And these people have seen her act, so she's not a bad actress. So like at the end of the season, I'm like, she played hardcore amazingly. Right. So like obviously she got the job. If she sucked, okay, and she came back for second season and they didn't cut the character. Little nepotism there, but she was excellent.
Yeah,
she didn't bring the show down. She didn't.
Right. It's like you said with Julianne Moore. It's like it wasn't like she was an unknown quantity. She was huge then. I mean, like
it always made me upset. It made me kind of want, and the way they did the Hannibal, just to go on a tangent here, the way they did the Hannibal series, where they did Silence, so obviously Manhunter, but it's not really connected to the Anthony Hopkins version of the show. And then they did Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and then Red Dragon as the prequel, and then they did Hannibal Rising as the prequel. Like, made me think that I love Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, but also made me think that I would love a reboot and they actually do it in order. Like do Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Rising, because of Hannibal Rising, that's how the books were written.
Yep.
Or do the opposite, put Hannibal Rising at the beginning, but do a reboot of the entire thing, which would be cool too. But
wild to think how many of those movies and shows there have been, and that I guess there is kind of like a Lecter verse out there.
Yes.
That's weird.
Yes, it is. But I think it's a great character, and I think I was telling Taylor, like I kind of liked it because he's have you watched the show Blacklist or seen anything? He's read from that show. Like Hannibal Lecter is like if Red ate people.
Yes.
Like if he ate people, it would be the same person because of like the fancy things and the money and the hiding and the and the knowing people and the doing these weird things.
Oh yeah.
But then you also eat people's noses and tongues, which is like, I forgot how some vulgar or how much blood was in Hannibal, but like,
oh my gosh,
it's a great series. Taylor and I were watching it. We're like, something triggered me in watching it. And I was like, she had seen some of them or whatever. And I was like, let's watch them in the order and then watch Hannibal Rising. So it was Red Dragon, and we watched Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal. And then we'll watch Hannibal Rising to kind of give an idea of how he became who he came. And then there's this TV show too, Hannibal, which is like 39 episodes. Great series. Tangent that was not anything to do with Peacemaker, but I don't know. Okay. Julianne Moore, Jodie Foster,
nepotism.
Oh, yeah, but Hannibal. What's his name? Speaking about DC, what's his name? Gary Oldman played the millionaire guy that cut his face up. I completely forgot that was him because you can't see it's him because of all the
it's wild
prosthetics. I know. And I'm like, that's Gary Oldman? Sweet. Vigilante might have been my favorite character in this show. The fact that he wants to hide his identity in Peacemaker, he wants to hide his identity so bad. He's like moving his face around so you can't tell a sketch artist who he is, and all this stuff was hilarious. I think when he went to the prison and got arrested to try to kill Peacemaker's dad, and he goes to the table and he goes on these tangents about, let's talk about what Black people have done great for this country, and saying all these things. And the people were like, what is going on? And I love it because the African-American dude in the corner, after he got the police come in, the people come in, they're like, he didn't do anything wrong. It was the white supremacist people who started. Like, I got your back, man. I got your back.
Yep.
But like, again, Vigilante and Peacemaker seem like they'd be friends because they both have common sense. They both are dumb in certain situations. They both kill people for that's the answer, is killing people. It was the whole Vigilante part was funny to me. And Freddie Stroma, who played him, did an excellent job. And the only thing I remember actually ever seeing him in, he was in like Pitch Perfect, but he was also in Harry Potter as like a D character,
Gotcha.
like a very side character that you could.
No, I thought
he was excellent.
He did an excellent job, and like he's like I said, another one of the hyper violent characters. But I see how he could build to be pretty important, because I think Peacemaker is starting to see that his whole mantra of just killing for fun isn't maybe the way to do it. So
yes.
So yeah, he was a really fun character.
I wrote on here, and I don't want to go over all of them because we try to be as non-vulgar and non-cursing on this show as much as we can. But fun quotes from the thing. His quote, his tagline, "Eat peace, motherfuckers," is hilarious. So first of all, we talked about the Batman doesn't kill people. This is because he's a pussy. My other one was, I've made a vow to peace no matter how many people I have to kill. That is like, it's so idiotic. It's so funny.
It's like it is 80s and 90s America, man. It's
absolutely.
Like,
and then, so cool fun fact for all those people who live in the greater Bangor area about this show is Steve Agee, who played Economos in this show, and on the he also is the voice of King Shark in the Suicide Squad movie. Is coming to the Bangor Comic and Toy Con April 22nd to the 24th. Cool. To take photos, sign autographs, all that stuff. So you get to meet Economos from the Peacemaker in Bangor if you're in the greater Bangor area, which is where we are. But I love his character. I love the whole dye beard jokes back and forth. And by the end of the season, you can see his beard coming through his gray, that he actually does dye his beard. And he has the whole opening up moment towards the end where he talks about how he does dye his beard and he thought people didn't like him and all that stuff. But at the very beginning, when he's introduced and he's been in prison for 4 years, and he walks in there and they're talking to him in his trailer, and he opens the fridge and starts eating the olives. It's like, hey, dude, man, you're eating 4-year-old olives out of my fridge.
Yep.
He's like, oh, God. Like not even thinking that he hasn't lived there this whole time, which was great because he was a great character. I love Steve Agee. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Sarah Silverman program.
He was a really good character. That scene at the end, like you said, where he's kind of talking about his beard. And like I said, those are the moments totally where like the series I thought shined, because that was one of those, look, like this is what these like constant kind of toxic broy attacks on people like do to them over time. So that was, he was great. So that's super cool that he's going to be at the Comic-Con. Yeah, it's awesome. We're excited and I was pumped about it. So I was putting together the graphics for Jay and Will at the Comic-Con. And they had given me a list of things, a Suicide Squad, and they gave me a list of like Sarah Silverman program. And I've seen, he's in Superstore. He was in the Guardians of the Galaxy. And he, like I said, he did the voice of King Shark. And then I was looking, I'm like, wait, he's Economos on Suicide Squad and this. I'm like, wait, why aren't we writing Peacemaker on here? Because this is a popular show and it came out months before for the Comic-Con. So it'll be cool and interesting to talk to him and say hi to him when I get to the Comic-Con in April. But for now, we'll just every time I'm watching, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to meet that person. I was like such a kid in a candy store. It's kind of funny. Sometimes it's like, you have to like, whatever, man, I'm meeting someone, but then you're like, wow, this is kind of cool. I'm meeting that person. So that's exciting. Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, so the show as a whole was a refreshing, different, like whether you like the sexist, racist part of it or the vulgarity of it or not, the killing and all that stuff. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying that I'm trying to preface you put it in a nutshell. It's very vulgar, very sexist, very racist, and very offensive show. But that is a refreshing change of pace from what we've gotten from the DC universe in the DCEU, the 90s Batman movies, anything. It's like a complete 180. Not 180, but like a complete veering off of what we've seen from DC. And I want to be a Marvel head here and say we own James Gunn. Marvel fans own James Gunn because he came over and he came popular basically. Thank you're welcome, DC. Because James Gunn is the one that was able to do that with Suicide Squad and this.
And like I said, we have to look at this as a show that's on a streaming service too. But like my final thing, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the second season. It would be like my good final kind of feeling about it. Like I wouldn't watch it just because I have to, but I also have to say Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, but it's still
like way better. But I know I'm just like I love Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, but I was just trying to say to someone, it's like nowadays there's so much stuff. Like people ask me, have you seen this thing? Have you seen this thing? I'm like, I have so many. There's just so many things, dude. There's just and then I also want to rewatch old stuff. Like that's the thing is like we're hoping like for May 4th we're gonna hopefully talk the 3 prequel movies, and it's like, well, I'm going to watch those out, and those have been out for years. So like, I've got to watch all this stuff and live my life and watch older stuff and watch newer stuff. So there's some things I have to pick and choose from. And James Gunn has gotten me to watch this because of him. But truthfully, it's still the greatest thing he's done is Guardians of the Galaxies 1 and 2. But this might be the best DC thing I've seen in a long time. And it may just be beat because of it's still gonna be dark and gritty with the Batman, but like more mainstream part of it may be out, depending on how much we like Batman or not. Beat this out as the best thing we've seen in a while, because I do think that I'm gonna give Batman its due, because I do think it's gonna be a good. I like the fact that they went with someone.
I do too.
That wasn't this. I mean, Robert Pattinson is a star, but like not your star as Batman is what they've done in the past, and I think this is a nice little diversion from that. Like what Marvel's been able to do is put people in casts that are not a few people here and there, but most of the people are not really much of anything or have on the downturn.
Right.
And been able to say, you got to care about the character more than you do the actor. And that's what I feel like we're going to do with Batman. Batman's going to be more, I care about Batman than I do Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. And I think the big thing too, like you just mentioned about the Peacemaker, is that it's good to see DC starting to be funny, though, because we've said in the past when we've talked about DC movies, like it's not even that I hated the movie, but I was so depressed when it was over. Like, so like seeing kind of that humor come in like it did with Ragnarok was the one for like MCU, you know, and all of a sudden there was this injection of kind of this funnier, lighter part of Marvel. So like DC's needed that in a big way for a long time.
And he kicked it off with the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad, I think, was a better version of in moments, a better version of the original one that came out a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But that was more like dark and gritty again. The Suicide Squad had that funniness, and that was only 6 months ago ish, or whatever it was August of last year. So there was this. He kicked it off with that, and then was able to give us Peacemaker and Peacemaker season 2, and then whatever other project he's going to work on for DC. I think again, I'll go back on it as a pop culture and comic book podcast, is things like this makes me want to do more DC things, makes me want to read DC comic books, makes me want to read and watch movies. Whereas if you didn't have one of the two mediums, I would never pick up. I mean, I bought, I think I have it here somewhere. Hold on.
What I love that they're on.
I bought Suicide Squad #1.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this is the first appearance of John Economos, Steve Agee. And I have 2 issues of these because I had another one, but I thought, why not have Steve Agee sign it at the Comic-Con? Yeah. This would be a cool thing. This is my first physical purchase of a DC comic book, and it came at the helm of.
There you go.
Right after this show. So there's that aspect of connecting the things together. And that's why I do think that there is something to be said about having something for everybody, which is the CW things, the dark, gritty movies, and this. Like there is, so that we all can be part of the DC world.
Exactly. And I think, you know, as they're looking at the MCU having Disney Plus, like, honestly, I think HBO is a good home for DC. Because if they do it right, they have a lot more leeway with what they can do for HBO audiences than for Disney audiences. And so that part of it, I think, is fun to see that they can, they have a lot more freedom, I think, than you do when you're producing for a younger audience. I mean,
it helps us as fans too, that I will always be a subscription member to Disney Plus because of what they have for content on there that fits my thing. HBO, it's like, so HBO, I think it's like nowadays, it's like basically, it used to be Hulu for me, but I feel like nowadays it's like Disney Plus, Netflix, and HBO Max are like, those are the 3 pinnacle things, because of what else? You get the DC stuff, you get all this other stuff with HBO Max. Marvel, you get the Marvel stuff, which is amazing, and the Disney stuff. And then obviously Netflix has their own things as well. But my thought is that it's possible with Marvel stuff leaving Netflix and HBO Max over here that it might actually be, in the long run, your Disney Plus and your HBO Max, and then forget the Netflix part, like the sign up for Netflix when a new season of Stranger Things comes on or whatever it may be. But I just feel like they're starting to get, for the nerd culture, they're starting to get overtaken by HBO Max and by Disney Plus in that aspect of it. But so season 2 is happening. Gunn is at the helm of both directing and writing. I'm guessing most of the cast is returning. Any of the living cast will be, any of the living characters will return. Right. But before then, I believe at least the holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy is supposed to hit this December. And so that means that we're going to get less than a year, we're going to get some James Gunn humor on the Marvel side. But I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 happens a year from May. So that will be a year from a couple months from now. So like 14, 15 months from now. So I'll be excited about that. But from the DC side, we had the Batman on March 4th, which is pretty cool. And I just saw one online. It's not a DC or Marvel thing, but it's a Ryan Reynolds thing. And that's the Adam Project, which is something you should probably look up too, because your name is Adam. But it's a Netflix movie that's coming out about time travel. And it seems like Ryan Reynolds goes back in time and gets lost. It gets stuck in the year 2022. So that one looked pretty cool. I just stumbled upon it the other day.
Yeah.
It comes out March 11th, but it's also starring Ryan Reynolds, Mark Ruffalo, Jennifer Gardner, Walker Scoble is the younger version of Adam, but Catherine Keener and Zoe Saldana. So it's got a pretty big cast for
that's
a Netflix
a great
movie.
Cast. Yeah.
That's
a really good cast.
That one looks pretty cool. It's coming out here pretty soon. But yeah, I'm excited. Oh, did you see, and we'll get into it, as again, this is just going on more Marvel, just broad news of pop culture. Who is doing the music for Obi-Wan?
No, I didn't. Is it John Williams?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that would make sense. That's awesome.
This is turning into like cool. the prequel, quote unquote, that we all wanted. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's turning into the Obi-Wan with John Williams doing the score, it coming out on May 25th. All that stuff to me was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. I cannot wait for that to hit the streaming.
I feel like Disney is still like, it's in its phase one. Like, I don't even think we've seen what they're going to do with Disney yet.
And like, Star Wars and stuff. It's just insane. It's fascinating to me because, yeah. I mean, I just I recorded this morning our hot comics that are coming out on Friday.
Sure.
And one of a little preview of one of the comics is Darth Maul #2, which is the first appearance of Cad Bane. And that to me is just like awesome because we saw that in the book of Boba Fett and then all the animated shows as well. But yeah, it's exciting. And again, Paul at the comic book shop is going to give me crap for this, but for me to be actually happy about a DC project is fascinating to me. And again, I hate to say it because neither one of us have anything really against DC. It's just if you put them in a scheme of things, Marvel's just in the past 10 years have done way better. And so it makes it very hard for us to be like, oh, I'm going to watch that DC thing. Like even the Batman, I'm excited for it, but it's not like what we were excited for like other things that are coming out. And so I'm almost more excited for the DC League of Super Pets. It's coming out, animated film.
Yeah. No, like I said, I think if they can kind of unify the vision under HBO a little bit and then that'll help them out a lot. Because as we've said in the past, I'm like you, I pretty much like, I don't really watch a lot of DC stuff, but I did grow up reading DC comics. And so for me, like I would probably at least 3 out of my top 10 favorite comic book characters all the time would be DC. It's just that I like the new stuff that I'm having trouble with. So I agree with you. I think stuff like Peacemaker is what's going to bring people in to DC. And
it was far from perfect. And that's the funny thing about it. Like you don't have to be a perfect, unblemished TV show. I think the show was far from perfect in ways, but perfect in other ways, and then mediocre in some ways. I just think it was definitely watchable. If you're going to go watch it though, like just be aware of your surroundings. If you don't want to watch it with your parents, then don't watch it with your parents.
Yeah.
If you're a significant other, might be a little bit edgy on the humor and the nudity and the violence and gore and swearing and all that stuff. Just be aware. This is a very
rated
show.
R. It's very rated R.
Like, it's a hard R.
Hard R. Like hard R. Yeah.
And there's not like a moment. It's like very little moments where there's like, okay, I could watch this episode. There's you can wait 30 seconds and someone's going to say something that's inappropriate. And some of them are innuendo-ish, but most of them are right in your face.
Yeah, they are.
There's times where I'm just like, I'm glad I'm home alone right now. Can my neighbors hear what I'm watching?
What is going on over there?
Lastly, the cameo at the end, which was unbelievable. So the ending of the show, it's not a post-credit scene or anything like that. It's literally the end of the basically towards the end of the show. They're leaving the place they go to blow up. Again, you can watch the show if you want details about it. And they're walking because earlier in the show, didn't they mention something about getting the Justice League?
Yes.
Adebayo said something about getting a Justice League.
She's on the phone and she's like, can we get the Justice League?
Which is the same kind of funny humor from Ant-Man when they asked about getting the Avengers.
Right.
But they're leaving and all of a sudden out of nowhere you see this flash of light. And it's a floating figure that looks like Superman, which is not actually any Superman character we've had. It's a stand-in.
Yep.
It was just someone there. And then Wonder Woman, again, it wasn't what's her face as Wonder Woman. It was just a stand-in. But then it was actually Ezra Miller as the Flash and actually Jason Momoa as Aquaman standing there. And he goes, "You're late." And there's actually a much more vulgar thing. I think it was, "You're effing late, you're dickheads." Like, and then he walks by and he goes, "Go sleep with another fish." And then Aquaman goes, "I hate that stupid rumor." And Ezra Miller goes, "Is it a rumor?" He goes, "Shut up, man." And that was it. And they walked past them and they didn't even care about them being there. And I thought that was hilarious.
That was one of my favorite parts. I thought that was great.
And that's mainly because it's one of the things that I've heard on podcasts and we've talked about is there's certain times you're like, this is a world all these superheroes live in. If something this drastic was happening, where are they? Why are they not here helping? And you have these small B characters doing the work. And this is a kind of a shout out to that. Like, they did show up, but they were way too late.
And which is funny because that is something you've mentioned before. And, and I think also when she makes the call, if you listen to the conversation, like she's like, "Well, do you need them there like right now?"
Yeah.
And so like clearly like, it's like, no, like a week's okay. Okay. We'll send the D team.
Yeah, exactly. These characters that obviously you can't stand and are and as you see, speaking of that, Chris Smith or Peacemaker did have trouble trying to kill that kid. So he did have some sort of level of not wanting to kill anybody, but then he got away from that and started just killing whoever he wanted. And at the end of the show, Amanda Waller gets called out that she has a secret organization and the show ends. And now we're going into season 2. So that'll be exciting to see how that unfolds, to see how the Suicide Squad, maybe some characters from the Suicide Squad join in with season 2 or whatever. But fascinating to see a show called Peacemaker from DC to be that successful on the internet. I went to say, and I usually do this, Adam, but I didn't. To close out, I wanted to see Peacemaker. There was a show years ago called Peacemaker 2 from 1997, or a movie called The Peacemaker. It is a 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty good for a freaking TV show.
Oh, it's great. And like I said, I mean, I don't want to from the beginning make it like, I think it deserves that. I just think I would like, I honestly, I love, like I said, everything about the setting and the audience. I just think, I hope people see the good stuff it's saying, which is a lot, and not just get caught up in the gore of it all. But no, I think it's just addressing that part of our country is great. And needed.
And it's different. Like I said, it's one of those things that he's able to take a part of the country that we didn't care about, or the world that we didn't care about in comic books, is usually in cities.
Exactly.
With a character that we didn't care about, and a people around it didn't care about, and a story that no one really cared about, and was able to create something that we cared about. And that's pretty cool. I mean,
and brilliantly did it with a wrestling icon. I still think that's why it worked, because he brought an audience with him that probably wouldn't have tried out some dumb DC movie on HBO or show on HBO. And now they're in it. And so they're going to start going like, oh man, I guess that, the racist stuff they talk about is important. So maybe crowds will get brought in and start talking about it. So yeah, I think it's a great show. It's just,
I just wondering I want to finish with this, is that it took me how many years to get past the fact that The Rock was The Rock? It took you how many years to get past Will Smith as being Will Smith, like the rapper Will Smith, and going into the actor Will Smith. Like, I don't even think about him as a rapper anymore. And a lot of times I don't think about The Rock as a wrestler anymore. He's just one of the most successful and talented actors out there. John Cena is super freaking talented. And I think he's going to go places even further than his crappy B movies that he used to make about like fighting in the military and things like that. Like, now he's actually going to get these star roles because he's getting better and better and better at it. But it's going to take me a little bit of time before I'm not like, oh my God, they cast a wrestler as the main role in this movie. And so that's what I got to get past that.
It was honestly like, I don't know if anybody else could have been casted in that role. And I mean, it was like, I just feel like it was like he was like, it only works because of him. Like, that's like why that character works.
Correct. And he needs to be that big. He needs to be that roided out, quote unquote. That's insinuating that John Cena takes roids, but like, you need to be roided out, the big dude, an imposing figure, because he's not really a superhero. He doesn't have superpowers per se. All that stuff's great too. And excellent show. Check it out on HBO Max. I love to say it's free on HBO Max. You do have to subscribe to HBO Max. Once you subscribe to HBO Max, then it's free, because most of us have it. So it's just we could just watch it. You can binge it on there and check out season 2. But I think it was fun. Like I said, not the best show in the world, but definitely up there for me, for sure. It definitely made me want to continue watching it and got sad when the show was over. And that's to say something for sure. You're not trying to
I'm excited to see what HBO is doing. Like I said, I loved the Watchmen kind of non-canon spinoff they did. So this, it gives me hope that maybe DC is finding its home.
And so now no one can fault us for saying that we're not a DC. We don't talk about DC on here, because I don't even talk about DC when I do my pull list, so they don't buy DC comics. Exactly. So like, here was a DC for all you DC fans, and we will be doing the Batman Dark Knight trilogy, and we will once the Batman comes out.
That'll be fun.
After a little while, the Batman coming out, we'll do the Batman. And so we'll do all new DC movies that are coming up, hopefully, too, after they come out. We wait a little bit so people can watch it. I'm not a big fan of, I listen to a podcast and it's like they see the premiere and they put it out. And I'm like, I haven't even got a chance to buy a ticket yet. And you're already, I have to skip your episode. And then I forget about the episode. So our goal is really wait a little bit after it so that you have time to digest it, maybe see it in the theaters or wait for it to come out on digital. And then you can digest our stupid, unknowledgeable, unbacked opinions on this. That's our quote, our tagline of Capes and Tights.
We're not experts.
We're not experts. So please don't. We have to put that at the beginning of a money podcast. Like, we're not experts. We're not people that can't tell you what, do your own thing.
This is not life advice.
Exactly. So that was fun, Adam.
That was great. Now we got DC, Marvel, and Star Wars to contend with.
And then next week, Ghostbusters. So now we have we're going to pull in some other stuff too. So we're going to get to that finally. I'm excited. I'm going to watch this week Ghostbusters 1.
Yes. Annie and I just said that. Even 2 I haven't seen in so long. And 2 is so good. I like the number 2. There's so many people out there that don't. I don't know what their problem is. I think 2 is fantastic.
Yes. So I think I'm going to watch it this week. I think I had the 4K. Which is stupid because 4K from 1980 something or 90 something is no different than 1080p in my opinion.
I've been burning Tales from the Crypt onto a drive so I can watch it on my TV because it's on DVD.
Yeah.
And same thing. I'm like, let's put that into 1080 ultra wide. And then I'm like, it's 1990s HBO.
Exactly. So Taylor and I, since we record this on the beginning of the week, we're gonna go to Queen City Cinema Club. We're trying to do that, not going out as much, but we're gonna go out safely and stuff to kind of get ourselves right. So we're renting a theater, the small theater at Queen City Cinema Club. So at least we're out, get our food so that we can sit in our own private little area, which we're excited about, babysitter and all that. We're gonna watch National Treasure because that's one of our favorite movies of all time. And it's a movie that a lot of people don't like. And so one of these days I'll have to do some sort of fun review of a Nicolas Cage movie because there's an amazing Nicolas Cage movie coming out. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it, but it's a Nicolas Cage movie about being Nicolas Cage.
I did see that.
The unbearable weight of massive talent. It is, I cannot wait.
He is wild lately. He's doing all of these excellent horror films, just nonstop. It's hilarious.
And they're good. Unlike freaking
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis did 8 movies in 2021. I can't name one of them. I can't. I mean,
right off the bat, I can tell you Pig, Mandy.
Yep.
And only because I can't think of the name, he did a Lovecraft horror recently. Yep. Like you said, I mean, and that's just off the top of my head, which who would have thought that for Nick Cage in 2022 on your bingo card?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, though, and then he's doing a movie about himself, which is the most Nicolas Cage thing that I could think of is a Nicolas Cage movie about being Nicolas Cage. It is amazing. So gotta check that out. I think it's in April sometime, April 22nd or somewhere towards the end of the month.
Yep.
That'd be fun. So check out the trailer if anybody hasn't checked that out. But Peacemaker, HBO Max, DC series by James Gunn. Yep. See it on your TV at home with some popcorn and some non-alcoholic beer or alcoholic beer or seltzer or coffee or whatever you want.
Whatever you got.
We're not sponsored by anybody, so we can't say anything.
Well, that was fun, dude.
Yeah, we love ending these things. It makes a lot of sense to us. We just kind of trail off at the end.
Yeah, it just turns into a normal conversation.
Yeah.